This boat here is the polar opposite of the more modern production-built sailboats like the usual Benettos, Bavarias, Hunters, Janos. Those boats, a lot of people say, are not really suitable for long, rough, open ocean crossings. But this here is a Swan 55, a true Bluewater ocean-going classic boat. And today we'll take a look at the features and qualities that set it apart from most other boats out there. So with me today I have Tapio Lehtinen. Tapio, you have tens of thousands of miles of solo sailing experience behind you, so you probably put a lot of thought into this boat. Can you tell me just really briefly, like, what are you going to be using the boat for?
We'll be taking part in the 5th-year anniversary race of the first Whitbread round the world race, which was sailed in 1973, with similar philosophy as the Golden Globe race, which I took part 2 times, which means that they are so-called retro races. We are using the technology, sailing technology of the original races and bringing it back to the basics and more than arms race into a race where it's the sailors against the elements.
Yeah, exactly. This is very much a classic sailboat, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into it. And also later on, when we get inside, we'll talk a little bit about your solo sailing, the Golden Globe race experience, and maybe a little bit about the mysterious shipwreck, unfortunate shipwreck that you experienced, and also you were left stranded in a life raft for a while. And let's talk a little bit about that and what all of us sailors can learn from that once we get inside. But let's look at the stuff here outside first. So what I noticed when I came aboard first was this steering wheel, or multiple steering wheels that we have here.
It looks like we have 3 steering wheels, but actually we have 2. The main rudder, or rudder proper of the boat, is here under the pedestal, and the rudder post is here right behind the pedestal, and the rudder is turned with the big wheel. But an innovation of the designer of the boat, Olin Stevens, in the 1960s was to add a trim tab on the trailing edge of the keel, and that is in the middle of the boat.
Yeah.
And so the trim tab is turned with the smaller wheel, and the third one is a lock, so we can lock the trim tab a few degrees to either port or starboard, or alternatively we can turn the locking wheel to the other extreme, and then these 2 blades are locked together, so that when I turn this wheel, both the trim tab and the rudder turn at the same time, which makes the boat turn quicker, and that was used in the America's Cup for starting tactics, but I'm not quite sure whether we will be using it or not.
This is one of the things that has been kind of phased out nowadays, doesn't really exist.
It was actually ruled out in the early 70s, yeah, when the IOR rule was introduced, and then this was a fashionable new innovation, but it's also an Achilles heel. It's very vulnerable when you have a turning blade at the deepest point of the boat. Whenever you hit a rock, you damage it, and it's expensive to repair. Yeah. So they put a penalty for them, and so they disappeared from the offshore sailing boats.
We will get to the things that I think are for sure beneficial for all kinds of boats, and especially Bluewater boats. But let's talk about one of the things that's also not so common nowadays, maybe because it's maybe not that efficient either, and that's probably going to be the mizzen mast and the mizzen sail, right?
Yeah, well, that was something which was also actually basically ruled out by the at that time new IOR rule, yeah, in the early 70s. The secret of the mizzen mast is not so much the mizzen sail itself, but more than that, the mizzen staysail, which is hoisted from from the mid of the boat up to the masttop of the mizzen mast.
And that's basically like an extra gennaker, you could say, like it's in the middle of the boat, an extra gennaker.
30-40 square meters of sail and 0.2 to 0.4 knots of speed whenever we are able to hoist it. So,
of course, one thing that's undeniably great about this boat is that it looks great. And there's a saying that goes that, you know, beautiful boats sail well. We'll talk a little bit more about that maybe inside. But here, like one thing that I notice myself, you know, I've sailed on a lot of cruising boats. Cruising boat, the problem that you are often going to have is you have a lot of crap here, like you can't see anything really. But this boat, it's going to be a crewed race and you're going to be helming the boat most of the time.
24/7.
24/7. So there's no autopilot. And I mean, immediately I can notice, you know, if you are helming the boat, you know, you're heeled, you have a really good spot, you can always see something. Whereas on my boat, you know, I have a huge dodger there. I'm gonna be like standing like this. But of course, we are short-handed and we are using an electric autopilot most of the time. So that's a thing. And here, I mean, the cockpit is really great for working in, right?
Yeah, it's quite well protected, and we are going to have jack lines on the sides here, and the helmsman can clip onto this locking wheel, so there's always place to hold on and clip yourself on.
Yeah, and I mean, if you need to use the winches, I mean, they are just like right here. Such a simple thing that should exist on every other boat, but that's not true anymore nowadays, right? Yeah. That you can actually reach these things and actually sail the boat. All right, so here when we are walking on the deck, we obviously like have the jack lines, but here on this boat you can see that they are placed in the middle of the boat, or at least as close to the center of the boat as possible.
Yeah, I think it's very important that whenever the going gets rough, you are clipped on all the time, and also that the jack lines are positioned in such a way and your tethers are so short that it should be impossible to fall over the lifelines. Yeah. Because that's also one unpleasant way to die, is to be over the side on the leeward side of the boat, hanging on and unable to climb up and drown there.
Yeah. Which has happened and happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. So it is important.
Yeah, and we have like pad eyes and attachment points for people who are working here on the winches.
So you can clip on here, and
yeah. This is essentially what we are probably going to do on our boat as well. We tried to lead all of the reef lines back to the cockpit, but there's so much friction, it's hard to do. Yeah. And we also have this, and I want to have this kind of a system where we have reef lines in the luff as well. Yeah. So then you can pull the mainsail down on all points of sail. And for that, we only have 3 reefs because we have a massive second reef and a massive third reef.
For cruising, that's a good idea because it keeps it more simple. Yeah.
But we still have 6 lines for 3 reefs, right? So it's like getting all of that back to the cockpit. Yeah. I think it's just easier to maybe have it here. Okay, so let's go inside soon, but let's take a look at the head sail configurations that we have going on here. And now you chose to go with furlers, like despite they add a little bit of windage and so on, but you chose to go with 3 furlers.
Well, I was very happy. This is exactly the same configuration I had on Asteria, and I was very happy about it. This might not be the fastest one again in the race speed-wise, but then on the other hand, the most important thing is that it's the safest solution. You have to remember that in my opinion and my theory, I think it's part of the climate change, that the weather on the ocean is changing more often and more rapidly than it used to do. Yeah. And the trade winds are not as stable as they were and not to speak about the westerlies in the Southern Ocean. You get headwinds and all kinds of weather changes much more often than earlier, and that means that you need to kind of change gear many times a day, and if that means taking a sail down and other one up, you at every sail change you lose half a mile or something, and it's hell of a lot of work. And if your team does 10 sail changes during 24 hours, they will be really tired. But this will make so I think it will pay back also racing wise.
So, welcome to the spa department, right?
Yeah, so this department, which has the pantry on the port side, and we have nicknamed this area the boiler room. So that this combination is the wet area of the boat, which is called the spa department. Looking back, it can be closed with the sliding door here, and we are going to have a cloth door here with the just zipper opening when it is wet and cold. And the idea is that when we come down from this conning tower stairs, wet and dripping, we are not going forward or into the aft cabin while we are wet. But there's an access to the aft toilet so that you can come from the deck and use the toilet without getting the boat otherwise wet. Now WeatherFax is here, and that's such old-fashioned technology which I don't like. It's not very efficiently working. So if we run out of toilet paper, we can use the WeatherFax paper.
Paper from there. And there you have something that we should have. Well, we kind of have this kind of a system as well for drying clothes and all of your gear.
Let me show. This is not quite finished yet. I'll give this one away, but it will be a hanging locker so that we can put the wet clothes hanging here, and then we have two Finnish Safira diesel heaters behind this board, and it blows hot air from here and also under here, and this gadget will be installed here so that we can put wet gloves drying there, and there's a bigger one which will be fitted here for the boots. So when you come down for your off watch, you put your wet gear here for drying, and under this bench we have the water machine making potable water, and the diesel generator is below here.
And back there you also have all the electrical panel, of the electrical panel.
All the mains and charging controllers are here around the corner. And the idea is that if the boat would be rolled over, all these systems are off the sides of the boat, and so that they hopefully would keep dry in a knockdown or rollover. This bench here is meant to be used so that if we have 5 people on watch and it's wet and cold, 2 of them or 3 of them can come here at time and have something hot to drink and tell bad jokes. And if we are on starboard tack, there's a support for your feet here, and otherwise on other tack you have a backrest here.
And so here you start to see one of the biggest differences between this kind of a real blue water boat, as you could say, and the modern boats. And that is that all of the spaces, especially now after the refit, are designed in such a way that you always have something to hold on, and there's not that much that can happen if there's a big wave or something. Even if you're cooking, if you're sleeping, if you're moving around, it's all kind of nice and cozy, so you're pretty well secured all around.
One example of making the boat deliberately cramped is the new companionway ladder, which is wider and it's more sloped here, so that it and you have support on the side, so it's safer to go up and down. And you have to squeeze yourself between the sink and the ladder to the galley, but that's also deliberate, because now that you're standing there, you have
I have a support
If
here.
we
I
are
can cook here.
on port tack, you can lean against the ladder. And this is actually a Finnish innovation. This how do you call it? Closet. Drying closet, and so that when you're washing the dishes, you can lift the wet stuff into the closet, and it will drip through there, and it's air circulates in it, so that they will dry by themselves.
So this is something I would love to have on my boat as well. But maybe let's go all the way back, take a look at the crew quarters and the navigation. Okay, so here we are in the aft cabin.
Actually, because it's a classic boat, it's the aft stateroom.
Aft stateroom, yeah.
In modern boats, it's called the owner's cabin, but I prefer the aft stateroom.
Yeah. I was going to say that it's not the owner's cabin because it doesn't have the huge island double bed, which is impossible to sleep in any kind of seaway. But here, let's look at the navigation desk first, because this is going to be like this is one of the special things.
My homage, the French national sailing hero Eric Tabali, who used to have tilting navigation tables on his boat. So this is the position when we are sailing against wind on port tack.
But this is where you'll be sitting and spending quite a lot of time here, doing most of the navigation work. But the rest of the crew, you have a young crew or a team. Let's call it a team now properly.
Yeah.
Right.
We are 12 altogether.
Yeah.
I'm 65. Then I have two so-called trusted adults, the co-skipper Ville Norra and my team manager Pia Grönblom. They are both 50 years old. And then the average age of the rest of the team, 9 sailors, is only 25 years.
Yeah.
And our two youngest ones are 2 high school students from last year who are only 20 years old.
Yeah.
And the group of 3 so-called adults, we have our own bunks on the boat.
Oh,
then the youngsters are hot bunking, depending on the weather and situation.
Yeah. And so here we can already see you have like proper sea bunks.
So when we are at sea, all the bunks are only 60 centimeters wide. So that when we are sailing downwind, you don't roll from one side to another.
Yeah.
But then some of the bunks can be opened so that at port they can be made a bit more comfortable.
Okay. So we have more bunks further forward. Let's go and take a look at those and some of the crew quarters over there. And here we have all of the nice handholds. And this is what used to be the kind of like the party and dancing area on this boat, but you have modified it, correct?
Yeah, this is very, very open and empty when we brought the boat from UK to Finland. And we have added upper sea bunks and lower sea bunks, and then these settee berths are their dimensions are such that they actually double as extra sea berths too. We are putting lee clothes here, so this is also I think 55 or 60 centimeters wide. Yeah. On Asteria, my bunk was only 55 centimeters, and I think it was very comfortable and nice at sea, because I can just pull my knees up in the 55 centimeters wide bunk, and then I fit snugly in there. And this is an emotional table for me, because I did a similar change on Asteria, which was also made much smaller and more cramped than what the boat originally was. So I had to remove the table. So this table built in in 1965 by Cantiere Benello in Livorno, Italy, is the only thing I have left of Asteria, which is 6 kilometers under.
Yeah.
No, 5 kilometers down.
Yeah.
And but it was fitted with this steel tube so that it's very rigidly here. And when you open the sides, we can fit the sailmaker's sewing machine. So the sailmaker sits here and has the machine here, and we can pull a spinnaker all through the boat and sew a long line.
We do have the appropriate like storage for all the booze as well.
So you are your first time on board Galliana, so that's welcome on board.
Kiitos. So now we already started drinking, so this would be a good time to start talking about like your experience with Asteria. But let's take a quick look at the rest of the boat. So here you obviously have that's a solid wood stove. Yeah.
And actually solid fuel soapstone stove.
Yeah.
Made by the famous Paul E. Luke boat builders up in Maine, US, and I think they were produced after the war in 40s, 50s, maybe 60s. And
so is there a limit for how much wood you can take on board? If there's a limit on diesel, is there a limit on the wood?
No. I guess we can start burning the interior at some time.
Yeah. Okay. Do you plan to use
I found it. I have been looking for one for years and years, and I finally found it last winter in Texas at the chandlery shop and got it through a friend of mine, Tapio Saavolainen, organized it to be sent to Finland. And the young team furiously opposed fitting it into the boat because it adds with all the gear more than 100 kilos weight.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
But for me it's the heart of the boat.
Yeah. It's a little bit like us with the diesel stove. Even though it's only a diesel stove, it's not a solid fuel stove. It's still a heart of the boat for us to. This is gonna be something that you probably are not going to be using that much while underway, or what do you think?
No.
It's more of like a harbor party.
Yeah, it's kind of belt and suspenders approach that if the diesel heaters would fail, we still could have a possibility to heat the boat up a couple times if there would be calm weather in the Southern Ocean. Yeah. And because it will keep heat for longer periods, so we might use it if the weather is right. A couple times.
Yeah.
And one thing about the refit and changing the interior is that Notor has always built the interiors with wood surfaces, dark wood, but Sparkman and Stevens in earlier decades followed the Harrisov tradition of having the bulkheads mostly white and with only teak trim. And so we have gone backwards in history when doing the refit and going to a more old-fashioned and traditional way of doing things. Notor has the ceiling panels lengthwise, and we took all of them down and added some insulation. Now we have 20 or 30 millimeters of insulation below the deck, which is already sandwich construction, so it should be quite warm. And then all the sides of the boat were also insulated the previous winter. Yeah.
This, by the way, with the headboards and the insulation is one of the easy things that you can also do on just normal production boats to insulate them better, because they are usually not insulated at all, but usually there's a lot of empty space between the deck and the headboards. And that's what I have done on all of my boats always, because we've always tried to do like the things that are quick and easy to do, at least do those, and that's definitely usually at least one of those. Just take them down, glue something in, and suddenly it's gonna be a much warmer and a nicer boat.
In the saloon, which has been more narrow, but there are handholds all over the place, that no matter where you are, you can always take a good hold, and when the boat is heeled 30 degrees and going in big waves, it's very important that you don't fall from one side to another, and climbing up to the upper bunks you can take hold of this and climb up.
So here on the side of the boat we have one of the two heads, and I don't think there's very much to say about this one. It's obviously, I mean, you can wash yourself, you can have a shower, and there's a functional heads compartment. And this one too, it has two doors. Tapio, anything special about this?
Well, two added handholds also here, so when on port tack you can pull yourself in from here, and when on starboard tack you can climb up from the seat, getting a hold from here.
So here we just have the crew quarters, a couple more bunks, and when we come into the main hallway, few more bunks, and then maybe Tapio, you can show us the watertight compartment and the sail storage.
Yes, we have added a submarine door here, the bulkhead leading to the forepeak, and we have two bunks in the forepeak, but they have been removed because it will be used as only as a sail locker. And then the last bulkhead there, the opening will also be closed, so that it will be a watertight crash box filled with foam. There's a third watertight bulkhead at the end of the aft stateroom, which is just in front of the rudder post, so that if an orca whale would attack our rudder and damage the rudder shaft, water would not coming further forward in the boat.
Thanks for the drinks, Tapio.
Sure.
Finnish long drink.
Classic.
Kind of a traditional sailing drink.
Introduced at the Helsinki Olympics in 1952.
So, to finish this off, I just wanted to talk a little bit about your Golden Globe experience. And the story has been all over the internet already, how Asteria sank. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit from the perspective of a sailor or a boater, and what we could maybe learn from that. But I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know what happened, so maybe you can just briefly tell us what happened at the race, during the race, where and when.
I was sailing in the 2022 Golden Globe race, which was the second one for me. I had done the race previously 4 years earlier, and that time I was the fifth and last finisher. 111 days after the winner and 1 month after the prize giving, due to a massive barnacle problem which I had, and I promised myself and Asteria that we'll have another chance, another go, and so did we, and I had passed Cape Town and Cape of Good Hope, and about week after that, 18th of November, a sunny morning like today, with full mainsail and number one Genoa up, and I was sleeping 7 o'clock in the morning when I woke up to a loud crash which came from somewhere in the stern of the boat, and I realized that something has broken, and I wriggled myself out of my bunk because I had this safety net on top of the bunk, and it was open only at the foot end, so it took me maybe 20-30 seconds to get out of the bunk. And when I put my feet on the floorboards, the water level was already almost up to my knees.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the companionway, water was rushing in through the companionway ladder above the engine room or from the engine room.
Mm-hmm.
And in a few seconds, it was a first I was of course astonished that what the hell is happening, and this shouldn't happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
But in a few seconds, I understood that the boat is sinking fast, and the water level was coming up, and so I went to the companionway, and luckily I had moved my survival suit bag and emergency radio box next to the toilet and the companionway, so I could grab them and put them up into the cockpit. But then I had my grab bags behind the toilet seat, and they were strapped to the bulkhead, and I started opening the strap, but at that time the water level was coming already up to my waist level, and they were below the water. And so after not being successful opening them, I remembered that Kirsten O'Shafer, who was third in the race, that she was about 100 miles behind me, and Abila's not very far behind her. So I thought that if I just managed to get into the life raft and have some device which through satellite will give my position, I will not need to be in the raft for a long time. So I just left the grab bags behind and got up to the deck and put the survival suit on and the life raft into the water, and luckily it opened, and like in the movies, and then I cut the tether with a knife in the cockpit and just tied the life raft to the stanchion with a slip knot, which was against the routine which I have learned in the survival sea and safety courses, but at that time I felt that the boat is really sinking so rapidly that I thought that it would be better to make sure that it's cut at the time when I get to the raft. And after doing that, I had one last look into the cabin because I knew that one other important thing which I had left inside the boat was the E-perb buoy, and I tried to grab it, but I couldn't get long enough, and the water, by that time the water level was about 15-20 centimeters below the deck level. Mm-hmm. So in order to get something from the cabin, I would have needed to dive in there, which didn't feel like a smart thing to do. Yeah. And so I just forgot it and left it, and then looked back towards the raft, and my darn slip knot had opened, and the raft was drifting already 4 or 5 meters away from the boat. So then I instantly took a tiger leap as long as I could towards the raft, and somehow I was lucky to take hold of the raft and pull myself in there. Mm-hmm. After which I put a paddle together and started paddling back to the boat, because I was furious of my stupid mistake with the knot. I tried to get back to the boat in order to maybe open some of the hatches in the cockpit to see what had happened and what had caused it. Yeah. But I was not able to move the raft. The wind was pushing us away. So then the only thing left to do was just to follow the death struggle of my dear friend, which was pretty emotional. Yeah. As it was sinking, and then the stern went below the water, and bow lifted up, and then glided in, and at the time when the mast top was going towards the surface, I stood up in that tiny raft and holding with one hand and made a last salute to my dear friend.
Yeah.
And then it felt pretty empty for a while with 360 degrees of empty Indian Ocean horizon. I was, I think, 470 miles southeast of Port Elizabeth, on almost the 40th
And that's in the middle of nowhere, pretty
latitude.
much. Right.
That's pretty far away already.
Yeah. And so you got rescued afterwards by Kirsten, but about this sinking, I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about, like what happened there. But I noticed you mentioned that your e-burp, it was inside the boat. It wasn't on the like somewhere on the aft stanchion or something like that.
No.
Yeah. So how long did it take from the?
The reason why it is inside is that the boats are so small, and the conditions
submerged.
are so bad that one of the competitors even lost his life raft, which was on the deck. So my way to fit Asteria was that we had to have life rings and all kinds of safety things on the lifelines and the pulpits. But right after the start, I took everything off and put them inside, because the force of the waves is so big that everything just rips off, and so the e-burp cannot be on the deck because it would be washed away. Yeah. But
so how long did it take from the moment that you woke up until you were in the life raft? Approximately
about 6 minutes.
Yeah, and in that time you already put on your survival suit, right?
And opened the life raft.
And for most of us, we have survival suits on our boat as well. But certainly, if you give someone a survival suit and tell them to put it on, it's gonna take them 6 minutes alone. The first time. First time, it's going to take you 6 minutes if you don't practice it, right?
Yeah. But if you have a knife at your throat or a gun on your forehead, you start to think pretty quickly and act pretty quickly.
But you've also practiced the whole abandoning ship scenario a little bit, right?
The scenario, yes, but for example, no drills of getting the survival suit on.
Oh, really? Okay.
But we had done it prior to the start of both of the GGR races, because we had our picture taken with our survival suits on. So I think that served as some kind of a rehearsal, so I knew how it is being put on.
One question that I guess a lot of people wonder about is like, what's the latest news about what's the latest thoughts about the cause of the sinking? Like, what's your latest? Do you have like
we went through all the possible scenarios and theories pretty systematically in the winter, and I had 3 naval architects and working with me, going through all the theories. Among the all unprobable explanations, the one which turned out to be the least unprobable, still being very unprobable, was that I would have hit a submerged container which would have fallen off a ship. And first I thought myself that it would be totally out of question, because the hole was, we could pinpoint the exact location of the hole and also the minimum size of the hole in the boat, because I was able to follow how the boat was filled and in which position it sank. And the boat had actually 7 watertight compartments, 3 in the stern and the saloon and 3 in the bow. And they had to be filled up in certain order, and so we knew that the hole was below the engine room, and also the breaking sound came from the stern of the boat. So I thought that how the hell could a container attack me from behind? And also the boat had been strengthened. I had 3 layers laminated on top of the hull during the refit, and the middle layer was Kevlar, which is used in bulletproof vests, and the reason of doing that was exactly to make the boat safe for that kind of things. But even with all this in mind, it still is possible, and one of the naval architects, who actually is the professor of mechanics in the Aalto University and a sailor himself too, explained to me that the boat does not move in the water in a straight line, but in a seaway it moves in a three-dimensional space, and then a submerged container goes up and down, and if it's filled so that there's only barely one corner above the surface, it can happen that it floats in such a position that it has one corner straight up, and with super bad luck, in theory, it's possible that the container has gone down and my boat has glided on top of it in a wave and then smashed on down right on the corner, which has hit the elbow right in the sore place, and the probability of that happening, I have said that it's closer to Euro Lotto than the Finnish Lotto.
So on Asteria, you had the life raft on somewhere in the aft, on the aft stanchions, or did you have to like throw it overboard? How did it work?
My fellow sailor who had the life raft on the stanchions lost it because it was washed over, and mine was in the cockpit. And I, in the same way as I had made the interior of the boat more cramped, we built a totally new deck to Asteria, and the cockpit was made narrower at the aft end as the original one, so that it was so narrow that it just could fit the life raft on its side in there, which made the volume of the cockpit smaller, so that when waves would be breaking into the boat, the stern would not sink so much and it would empty quicker. And also the life raft was in a safe position, that if I would have been dismasted, the falling mast would not have damaged the life raft, and it was under the tiller, so that I had to lift the tiller up and cut the straps and then put it into the water between the life rafts.
Yeah, but in your boat, of course, Asteria is not a huge boat, so you were like able to easily enough do that. I mean,
it's heavy for me. I'm an old man, but adrenaline and an emergency makes things possible.
Yeah, I mean, because that's always a discussion where you try to decide the life raft placement, especially on cruising boats where we have tons of crap all around the place. And then you are trying to, maybe some people say it has to be somewhere where even the weakest crew member can lift it overboard. And so on our boat, we are lucky because we have a dedicated life raft compartment on the aft swim step.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
and you can just pull it out, and it's just gonna like slide into the sea. So I think that's ideal. What can I say? But the other stuff that you had trouble getting your grab bags, even though for that race you have like really strict requirements for everything that has to be in the grab bag. It has to be accessible. The same for the EPIRB and so on. But you ended up in the life raft with you. What did you have with you? Did you only have the...
Myself, I put into the life raft only my survival suit bag. I had the suit on, but I had the liner suit and a light breathing dry suit still in the bag, so I put those in there, and the emergency radios.
Okay, so you just threw the emergency radios in there.
And the life raft was equipped, luckily, with a PLB, personal location beacon, and first aid kit and some.
Okay, so the life raft was equipped with PLB and so on, which normally life rafts are not equipped with. Like, for example, ours, I know we have a grab bag theoretically, but we also use the same PLB and the Garmin InReach, the standalone device. We use them when we go ashore. When we go ashore and go skiing and so on, we take them with them. Then they're just laying around in the boat. So I think that's like something that
important, extremely important lesson learned was that a grab bag, the term means that it has to, you have to be able to grab it with you and not start opening something difficult, and that will be different on this boat, that your grab bags will be located so that you just
Okay, so thanks Tapio for the interview. Lots of useful insights, a lot of things to think about. I don't think there's like a, we can never come to a conclusion, like a definite conclusion of like this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do on a boat. But that's a lot to think about for all of us.
Yeah, I think we can always learn from one another. I have learned some solutions from your boat, and it's nice to meet you after a few years. And I'm a big fan of your project, and it just might be possible that you just told me that you are probably postponing your plans of going through the Northwest Passage with 1 year, and that's also one of my dreams, and that's one of the reasons we have put more insulation on Galiana. So it just might happen that after the OGR we would cross the Atlantic in the fall and get up north along the east coast in the spring. So we might meet up at the the Northwest Passage in the summer of
so
24.
Let's both have the champagne bottles ready, or the whiskey.
It's a deal.
Thank you. Thanks, Tapio. Alright guys, thank you for watching, and as you might have noticed, I had some help with the filming of this video, as Mikko-Pekka was behind the main camera and he also helped with the editing. And moving on forward, he's gonna help with editing a couple of other episodes as well. We are gonna try that out, and the reason for that is that with this channel and with these videos, my goal has always been to make really good videos that are enjoyable to watch and that have good storylines and good visuals and so on. And I feel like I'm at the point where I've kind of reached my maximum potential, or close to my maximum potential, when I'm working alone. I'm not a professional videographer, I'm not a professional editor. I'm getting pretty good with the camera work, and I'm really interested in the camera work. Editing is not really my strong suit, and just working on these videos alone and not having someone to like bounce ideas with and so on, I think that's kind of like limiting the quality of the videos as well. So that's why I'm excited that with these videos, us together, all the people who have been watching and who have been supporting on Patreon and so on, we've kind of reached the point where it's financially feasible to also employ some outside, or not really outside help, because I want to work together as a team, but to employ someone who's an actual professional. And I'm sure that together with Mikko-Pekka we can make these videos even better. There will surely be some hiccups in the beginning, it's going to be a learning process, but I think there will be an improvement in the videos. And it's not like he's going to be doing all of the editing. Like, I'm going to be doing some of the videos alone, and on some of them we are going to try and work together. We'll see how it goes. I just wanted to make this announcement because obviously these videos are crowdfunded basically, So I just want to let you know what's happening behind the scenes. And as some of you might know, next year we are going to be attempting the Northwest Passage, and that's a huge project. And I want to make some like really epic videos about that. And I really want to make like a good video series about that. But we also have a lot of boat work and a lot of preparations that we have to go through for that. So I think all of this is gonna help for that as well. So that was pretty much it. Thanks again for watching. And if you want to support the creation of these videos, the best way to do so is on Patreon. Like always, you probably know it already. And I'll see you guys next time. There will be a really cool video coming up in a week or two. See you. Bye bye.